Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly 30-minute webinar. My name is John Deline, a systems engineer here at Verify, and I'll be your host for today's session. Today, we're joined once again by Mike Stratton, my ultra-knowledgeable fellow SE. How are you doing today, Mike?
Good, John. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm glad to hear you're doing well as also. For today's session, we're going to talk about Webex calling and getting improved ring time calculations and abandoned calling reporting. Please note that these webinars are always recorded and posted within 24 hours, so you can review them at any time. Check out the webinars page at verify.com for all of our past and upcoming sessions. You can also find all these videos on our YouTube channel, if that's easier for you. First, we'll start off with a quick overview of what Verify can do for you. Then we'll jump into a live demo where Mike will take us through getting improved ring time calculations and abandoned call reporting from Webex Calling. We'll pause for Q&A. During the demo, if you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the chat. And after Q&A, we'll reward one lucky attendee with a $50 Amazon gift card. So hang around to see if you've won. Verify is the preferred analytics and management solution tool for Cisco Call Manager, Contact Center Express, Cube iOS, Webex Calling, Zoom Phone, and MS Teams collaboration. Deployable either on-prem or as a hosted cloud solution, we provide industry-leading call reporting and analytics, as well as customizable dashboards and widgets. CUCM management modules like remote phone control, change management, and dial plan management are also available. If you have any questions on any of our features, please contact us at support@verify.com or reach out to your account manager. One more thing before we kick this off. For an additional fee, Verify offers an enhanced consulting service to our customers. Verify's SE team engages with you on a one-on-one basis to remotely provide additional consulting, report building, dashboard configuration, and system monitoring assistance. This is a service that provides you with a dedicated Verify SE to do the heavy lifting, giving you a stress-free, hands-off experience. For more information, please contact us or your account manager, and we'd be glad to speak more in depth about pricing and terms of service for our enhanced consulting services, or ECS. It's time to take us into the wild. I'm going to hand things over to Mike now. Please remember to type any questions into the chat, and we'll address them at the end of his presentation.
All right, you are seeing my lab. Let me move this over. Okay. All right. Thank you, John. Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to talk about one is an upcoming feature for the Webex reporting, and the other is a feature that's already out and included in the current release. So the quick one is ring duration. So if you have Webex reporting already, let me jump in there real quick. History. Here we go. So current. Let's do some basic data. And current system as it stands, there are two options for ring duration or what we call ring time. You have ring time in seconds and ring time in hours, minutes, and seconds. Historically, going back to the earliest release of Webex calling reporting, we've had to calculate this value based on what Webex is giving us. I believe it's similar to what we were doing with the call manager data. If you've gone from CUCM to Webex, the old the ring time within the call manager analytics was always calculated, taking the difference in time from the connection time and the start time of the call. Cisco never provided an actual value in the data that said, hey, the call rang for this number of seconds. It's great. It works until it doesn't. And, and we saw that later on in later versions of Call Manager. So Webex has added a value to their API that's called ring duration. So now they're calculating it for us. So instead of continuing to calculate, the difference between start time and connection time, we're going to drop that and just start working or using or utilizing Webex's ring time duration from the actual CDR. So that should be out in the next big release, which will be 16.2. 16.1.1 just released a couple days ago. And so 16.2 should be out, I believe, sometime this summer. So nothing will really change in the interface. You won't see, like, if you have ring time in the reports, we're not adding like a new column like we did with Call Manager called calculated ring time, where we kind of
gave you an alternate version of the ring time. It's just, this will change from what from our calculations to the value that they're giving us. So like I said, that'll be out 16.2, hopefully sometime this summer. And then that's it for ring time. So let's go into abandoned calls. It's one of those features, or one of those ways of reporting. Abandoned calls are always kind of important to see. And so new in 16.1, we've included logic to identify abandoned calls. So taking a step back before that, to get ready for the abandoned call logic, we added a detail column. And this is only a detail column. You can't really search on it, although I guess it could be searched on. But at this point in time, we added it to the detail side. That's called releasing party. Releasing party is kind of similar to the cause code value that we used to see in the call manager CDR. Releasing party indicates which side or which party hung up the call. And the API Webex gives us 3 different values. There's local, remote, or unknown. And so with the Webex data, there could be 2 different call records, like for an internal to the Webex organization call. There's 2 records to like one call. There's 2 records to one event. Each device creates their own, or each object creates their own record. And then looking at either we can identify who hung up based on which record says local or remote. And then we can take that and then say, hey, the releasing party is either the calling party or the call party. The third option is unknown. So the unknown entry, if you see it in the data that's coming from Webex, it's used when the call has partial information that's or if it's unable to gather enough information about the party who released the call. So basically, if Webex can't figure out who hung up, the call gets tagged with unknown. If they can figure out who hung up or who ended the call, or who released the call, then they'll tell us, or they'll put it in the data, and then we'll see it either as call party or calling party. Here's call party, here's calling party. And I thought earlier today I saw it unknown. Yeah, so we have a couple unknowns just in the data. So, but it could be more so like if the call was dropped, or maybe where no one actually hung up the call, or maybe it's just something, with the way the call was handled and the way it was terminated. So that was kind of the first step into getting the abandoned calls in the data. So if you're looking to see, who hung up the call first, customer calls in and says, hey, I spoke with so-and-so, they hung up on me. If you want to verify, you can jump in here and find the call record and include releasing party. Again, that was released, I want to say version 16. But either way, if you upgrade to the latest version, you'll see the releasing party in there. And then that led to what we're seeing today in 16.1, the abandoned calls. So a couple things to see with the abandoned calls, how to identify it. It's really historically, abandoned call is where the caller, so the calling party, they release the call or hang up the call before it can be connected to its destination. So for us, we have to identify, is the abandoned call the last leg of a call sequence? And like in Webex CDR, there can be multiple last legs in a call sequence. So for example, I think if we just do called hung group, I'll just take a stab, throw in some of these here and see what we can get. Nothing. Let's do a week. So with that, when a call hits a hunk group, unlike I think this is a good call. Yeah. So like when a call comes into a hunk group, we can see the call here. The call originates. Myra places the call. Myra's internal calling into the auto attendant, and then Myra gets delivered to the hunk group. What we see next are all of these different user records. What's happening is the hunk group is presenting the call kind of like broadcast style to all of the different users in the hunk group. It happens all at once. All of these records are occurring at the same time. They're not like in any sort of order. It's all just happening, at the same time, or they're concurrent, if you want to use that word. And so if this call was abandoned, which actually might, no, it's not actually it was answered. So this agent here answered, but if the call was abandoned, all of these agent records here, or the user records where it's the hunt group, is the user type, delivering the call to the user type, they would all be user. And then even this record here would be 0 seconds. Then, we have all of these different records here that are part of the last call or the last leg in the scenario. Also, when it comes to identifying abandoned calls, if the call went to voicemail, it's not abandoned. Yes, it wasn't answered by the hunt group. It wasn't answered by the agent, but the caller didn't hang up before the call was connected. The call connects to voicemail. It goes somewhere else. So those calls will be tagged as voicemail, not as abandoned. And then we also have to look at, when a call goes to a hunt group or a call queue, did it go into an overflow queue or hunt group? With some of our customers, I'm seeing a lot of overflow queues and hunt groups, more so than we used to see in call manager, at least based on my experience. So, when a call goes to one queue or hunt group and then overflows to a second queue or hunt group, that first hunt group should not be getting tagged as abandoned, or should not be tagged with the abandoned call, because it wasn't abandoned while that hunt group. It was, if it was abandoned later on, then it would be abandoned at the second hunt group. So a couple different ways, a couple different scenarios that we need to look at or to kind of avoid when we're tagging abandoned calls. But to report on them, it's really straightforward. We've added, and this is in call history, in the reports, also in the dashboards as well. In the search criteria, if you search for the call scenario type criteria, and you edit, there is a new scenario called abandoned calls. It's that easy. If you haven't used the call scenario type criteria, I highly recommend it. It makes searching for just different scenarios a lot easier. And so if we just want to see all the scenarios for the current week, or all the abandoned calls for the current week, view the results. And should be pretty quick. And there we go. So we have 3,391 scenario or sequences that ended with an abandoned call record. So we can see here, simple call here. Ray calls into the hunt group, or actually Ray, calling party name hunt group, is delivering the call to Rachel. Rachel didn't pick up. Call is disconnected. Therefore, it's abandoned. So we can see, quick, easy way to report on those abandoned calls and call history. If we jump over to the dashboards, there's a couple different options. So the same support or the same logic is applied to the widgets and dashboards as well. So this here, just a simple call stats widget. We're looking at, in my search set, just looking at total calls. So by using the call scenario type of total calls, I'm bringing in all the call records, and then I'm including total call count, total call sequence, and then we've added abandoned call count and abandoned call percentage to the statistic type. So if you search here, those two. If we just search for abandoned, you'll see the two new options included with the abandoned call logic, call count, and call percentage. Save this, and then if I just stretch this, you can see 149 total records, which equates to 50 different sequences. And so out of those sequences, we have 4 that were abandoned, which means 8% of the sequences were abandoned. So and that the difference between the sequence count and the total call count has to do with kind of what we saw with those hunt group records, where when you get into like hunt groups and call queues, your total call count is going to be much, much higher than your sequence count, because one call into a hunt group, if you have 10 agents, that's going to create 10 different rows of data. And that's what total call count is going to be giving you, number of rows of data. So really, when you're reporting on like hunt groups, call queues, and you want to see, how many unique calls there were, definitely use the total call sequence count, not the total call count. And I'm pretty sure the abandoned call count takes those sequences into consideration. So really, the abandoned call count will be reporting on sequences, not on the unique calls. So, for example, call comes into a hunt group, it gets abandoned, it rings at 5 different agents. Those 5 agent records will be tagged as an abandoned call. But when you report on the abandoned call count, they will only report once, because we're reporting on the entire sequence. That way, we're not inflating the number of abandoned calls. Same logic can be used for the time period, the call volume by time period widget here. I have a search set where I'm only looking at abandoned calls. So here I want to see a breakdown by hour or by day or by week or by any sort of time period. Here I'm again leaning on that call scenario type criteria. selecting abandoned calls, and then here we have, a breakdown by hour for the current and previous week of all of our abandoned calls. So we can see, what's our busy hour for abandoned calls. We can hover and see, how many calls there are that are abandoned per hour for the current and previous week. And then on the grouping side, another example, I just have I'm grouping by the hunt group. I have my total call sequence count, and then there's my abandoned call count. So just a couple different examples, kind of just quick, brief. So here I'm reporting on, I'm just including a handful of hunt groups that I, at the time, thought had data. I was writing some of them. And then we are down here in the grouping section, just including total call sequence count and abandoned call count. I can even include, the abandoned call percentage if I wanted to. And there we go. So yeah, so definitely, you don't have to include the call sequence type of abandoned or the call scenario type of abandoned to include abandoned calls. If you report on just an extension, if you report on a user, a caller ID, hunt group, whatever you're filtering on in your search set, those abandoned calls will always be there. But if you want to specifically highlight those abandoned calls, use the call scenario type, call search criteria. Definitely use. I don't have it here, but the call scenario type. So yeah, if you only want the abandoned calls, definitely use the call scenario type. But if you want to see, total calls, voicemail calls, like a mix of different calls, and see how many, what out of the total call count makes up the abandoned calls, then you don't need to use the scenario type. Okay, moving on, going to the reports. The same things are the same. Abandoned call logic is available with the reports. I just threw together some basic reports right before our call. The abandoned detail report I just kind of built. So here I'm looking for the call scenario type of abandoned calls. I'm including my detail with including the call scenario as a column. And if I just ran this real quick, this is just to identify, who's maybe who's abandoned a call in the last, just say, current week. We usually see some of our customers running like an abandoned calls report, like an hourly report, especially if they have like a call center, hunt group, call queue, maybe like a doctor's office, to see who hung up recently, so that then maybe they can call them back and see if they need some assistance. So here, just the basic. I want to see all my abandoned calls and just the detail. So we have, if I can stop scrolling, all these different calls from, let's say they're all from the same number, going to this number, where we can see, they're all abandoned. They're also not connected, and then short duration, because we would expect the duration on these calls to all be 0 seconds, because duration is connection time and abandoned calls do not connect. So yeah, this will be a list of our abandoned calls. Again, you can filter. You don't have to just filter on the scenario type. You can also filter on users, hunt groups, and everything else, and then pull up this abandoned call legs. Yeah, but they can be used for any report when you're creating a report. So like on the grouping side, whatever you're grouping on, whether it's your day, year, client type, number, whatever, you'll see it here in the grouping options list. Yeah, just search for abandoned. It's always going to be call count and call percentage for now. If there are other requests for different ways to present the abandoned calls, we can add them in future updates. Yeah, you'll see them here: abandoned call count, abandoned call percentage. If we get down, go down to the call stat data tables, you'll see same thing. Abandoned call counts, abandoned call scenarios. So if you want to break down your abandoned calls by hour a day, or by date, or by some sort of time unit in the reports, you can. If you also want to add them to the charts, we will see them here at the bottom. So if you want to see abandoned calls in the charts, or like in the graph in the report, they'll be here as well. Same thing for the call stats, abandoned call counts, abandoned call percentage, and then same in the data tables, just like the grouping, abandoned call count, call percentage, and then same thing with the tables, band at the bottom, everything else, and so on and so on. And then for on the history side, if you want to identify those abandoned calls, like let's say you're reporting on
not just the abandoned calls, but a little bit of everything. And that's where you would add in the call scenario in the detail, kind of what I had in the last report. So if you have some existing reports, if you have hunk group reports, call queue reports, agent reports, and you want to add some of those, the abandoned call counts to those reports, you can. Just make sure you're at the latest release to verify, and then all of those fields will be available to you. I think that's kind of it. I mean, there's not much to it. They're there. They're available to be used. Really everything is just abandoned call count or abandoned call percentage. It's looking at the sequence counts, not the individual records. If we did the individual records, your call counts would be through the roof. And that's kind of it. John, I'll punt it back to you if we have any questions.
Well, we haven't gotten questions, but we got some future consideration ideas. So I've made a note of those, and we'll have those for the future. Thanks again, Mike. You did a great job, as you always do. And let me see if I can go ahead and get my screen shared out. And thanks again, everyone who attended today. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Our next session will be on June 26th, when Mike and I will switch roles, and I will delve into that settings gear that you often see in the upper right-hand corner of your Verify user interface. And we'll go over what are all those Verify system settings for. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.